right. Welcome to Spectrum class, everybody. How you guys doing?
We're doing fine.
All right. Your teacher, Leonard Brown, and this is the second week of an accelerated course, a 6-week course that we're doing Perfecting class. I believe last week, Calvin taught last week about how men became sinners, right?
Yeah.
You talked about that? Okay. I'm not going to take too much of your time, just about 15 minutes, give it to the time right now. And so we're going to cover how men became sons of God. So I'm going to be a little bit fast, so just bear with me, all right?
Okay.
But do not hesitate to ask questions.
We're not gonna go over what was discussed last week briefly.
You know we
Because
can.
it was some answers. I mean, some
He
questions.
gave us some homework.
Yeah, he told me. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's go over it then.
Okay, it says,
What are the three
scripture reading classes, Genesis 5:13-3, Genesis 6:5 and 5.
Let's do, which one you trying to do now?
The questions.
Number 1.
Okay,
What
man
are
is a
the three
three-part
parts of
being.
man?
All right, and then you name them.
Yes. Spirit, soul, body.
Okay.
Is that in that book, in this book?
Is it what, the three-part being?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. See, mostly the book is giving you references to
Okay.
where they are in scripture,
Okay.
and that's what it's explained up in there. Like, okay, the second one, name and define the 3 types of death. And that will be reference to part 5, which is different kinds of death.
Okay.
Is it physical,
Yep,
spiritual,
yep,
eternal?
yep.
So why do I post?
Because we was doing it together.
Okay, number 3. What 3 things did Adam do after he disobeyed God's command that were contrary to the will of God?
The only thing we got was he ate the apple. I wasn't here,
Okay,
so I don't know what was said. We did not have a book,
okay,
so I didn't know where to get the reference from. And the scriptures that they gave didn't mention anything about.
okay,
And then we had another question. I
okay.
don't know if I'm doing right or wrong or how I'm asking this question, but Sonny was kind of startled that did Adam make Eve or God made Eve?
No, that wasn't the issue, the problem, or
Oh,
the question,
okay.
the situation. When we were reading these scriptures, God was talking about how he made man,
Yep.
and how he made male and female, and how he called them Adam.
Oh, that's right.
I never saw that until we started reading this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that kind of baffled me because I'm like, am I reading this right? Then it went on to, so I was thinking, it was Adam that named Eve. It
That's
wasn't
right.
God, it was Adam. So he called male and female Adam.
That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
that's what
So
I had a question.
we'll cover it a little bit. So,
Okay.
and then we'll tie it into that question number 3 about the 3 things Adam did after he disobeyed God's command, and that's coming out of chapter 3. So yeah, he said, that God created Adam. He said male and female. So when the Bible was explaining it as in he created both beings,
Yes.
obviously because we're the superior being of male and female, but he placed them all in one. So that's why where the marriage come in at, that 2 become one flesh, because they get connected back into their original state, the way he had it in the first place. And so then, obviously, the story when it comes to where he was looking for the tree of life. And the Bible doesn't really say that much about it, other than that God said it's not fit for a man to be alone.
Yeah.
So then he puts man to sleep, and out of the rib of Adam, he creates Eve. And then when Adam wakes up, Eve comes and presents, it's like she presents it to him like a gift almost. And that's when he says, whoa, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, because he's recognized somebody that's just like him. And I think that's what the biggest reference was that in that part is that he didn't have anybody else. God was a spiritual being, and from our understanding and we look at it, he still had to address himself. Actually, it's a little bit different because he was in the Garden of Eden, which is different. So he was probably able to come at his natural form. That's a study that's probably another time. Because if you think about it, anytime that anybody else had come other than an angelical being, which was, they seen it at that moment, they had to come in the manner of a man. Same as Jesus. Jesus is the Christ, but he came as a manner of a man. But at that time, God might have been able to come in a certain form where he recognized he was God. So, but to make, because long story short, he didn't have nobody else. So he had Eve, and then he found somebody that was just like him.
Okay, now, with the three things that he went against God was, God will, one was biting the apple, two was what?
So the first thing was really, if we think about it, the first thing was the disobeying, which led to biting the fruit. He bit the fruit of the apple. And he said three things he did after he disobeyed. So we have to look at the fact that he says after. So basically the whole disobedience came into the fact that he bit.
Okay, but
he bit the fruit.
word that Dominique wrote down here said went against God.
Yeah, it said three things Adam did after he disobeyed God's command that were contrary.
This question don't say it after he disobeyed. The question that Emperor brought with him was named three things Adam did that went against God's will.
Yeah,
That's what she wrote
that's
down.
what was in Calvin's.
Same difference.
Okay, so we got that wrong.
So, it's the same difference. I mean, it's disobeyed God's command that's contrary to the will of God. And from our understanding, we'll look at, he hid himself.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Remember, he says it in chapter 3, he says that, remember in chapter 3, he mentions that, he ate the fruit and they were ashamed, both him and Eve. That's the first thing that he did. And he said that God was looking for him in the cool of the day. And he said, where are you? And he said, we heard you coming, so we hid ourselves because we found ourselves naked. So that was the first thing, is that he, bit the fruit. And he hid himself instead of actually meeting him at a time to get counseling like they normally used to do. Second part was he blamed Eve. That's right.
So you said that they was ashamed when they know that one was a male and female had a peppermint stick and other stuff. Right?
No, they were more ashamed because they became aware of their nakedness.
Oh.
That's really what that come down to. It's not really so much of the private parts, it's just they were naked.
Oh.
See, they ate from the wrong tree. That would actually be the first thing. Second thing is that they became ashamed and they hid from God, and that's leading into, some other stuff too. But the third thing is that he blamed Eve instead of taking responsibility. Remember, he's the head person. He's the one that's created first, but he has the responsibility to govern everything. In Romans, Paul mentions that he was the first Christ, so he will be the governor over all living things. Hence his word named Adam, or made creation of man. So that would be the three things that he did in disobeying that was contrary to the will of God. Okay.
Now, what page you on in this book?
Number 10. I'm just on the homework part. 4. Did Adam die when he ate the fruit of the tree? And if so, what kind of death did he die? What kind of death was it?
It had to be one of the three that we named. It had to be a spiritual death.
No, it was the one that you said before.
Was it a spiritual death?
That would
That
be,
wasn't. Where are you getting
no.
these questions
He
from?
said,
yes,
right here.
you're right. Number 5 on page 9. If you read, it
Okay.
says spiritual death. I was almost caught up because spiritual and eternal death is almost similar, but they describe it as he's being separated from God.
Okay.
Versus eternal death is being separated from God forever. So yes, it was a spiritual death. Number 5, according to Genesis 1:26, who has dominion over the earth?
God.
Okay.
You heard this scripture many times.
It could be okay. Who has dominion over the earth? I want to say we're supposed to.
That's right.
Okay, so that's right.
That's right.
Okay.
He said, "Let us make man and let them have dominion over the earth, the fowls of the air, and the creatures over the sea." What did the woman add to the command that God gave her husband? And that would be in Genesis chapter 3. I'll just go ahead on for time's sake.
Yeah, just give us the answer.
She says that, she mentions that God told them that she couldn't even touch it. Now, the first original command was just that they could eat from any tree, any fruit from any tree that's in the garden, but do not eat from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. But when the snake talked to her, when Satan talked to her, she mentions that God told her that they couldn't even touch it. And that would make a smaller difference there that some would believe that she couldn't even touch it, and he still insinuated even on that. So the last one is when a command of God is given to his children, the devil comes immediately to steal the words. Is that true or false?
That's true, right?
That is true.
Yeah.
Romans, is it Romans? No, it's in Matthew. It's actually a parable of Jesus that he speaks. He says immediately when the word is given, and he was speaking about the different types of hearts. He said one of the hearts was that if they didn't receive it fully, then the devil comes immediately and snatch it away. And so Jesus he's speaking that parable, and that's where that comes in at. All right, so now, and how men became sons of God. Now, I'm not going to really give you too much homework with this yet. I will give you an assignment, though. And it's going to be a really interesting assignment, I promise you. So like I said, for time's sake, we're going to go pretty quick. Did anyone you got the time on you now?
I got 9:17.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me to 9:25.
Okay.
All right? All right. So the first thing that we're looking at is that we will see how we were adopted into the family of God. Sin is what separated us from God in the beginning. That was in Genesis 3:14-19. But the Lord has provided an antidote for sin. This antidote is necessary because the wages of sin is death, and we have all sinned and come short of the glory of God. That's from Paul saying, the first thing is the antidote. You can go to Romans 5:19, 5:8, 1 Peter and 2 Corinthians. We all know that the antidote is receiving Christ. That would be the first thing. What we understand is that every created being on this earth has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So it doesn't matter what nationality or race or culture, all of us is in the same in line of being the sinner before we actually receive and know Christ for ourselves and develop a relationship. The first antidote is to receive Christ, because he's, as his resurrection is, that has been the redemption for all men, for all human beings. That's how I'm going to say that. And then so when we receive Christ, then we free ourselves from sin. That's what we understand. The second part is receiving the antidote. There's a few scriptures there. I wish I had my Bible and phone right now, but that's okay. But anyone of you got your phone with the Bible app on it? Because go to John 1:11-13. I believe that explains that this is really the purpose of Jesus Christ, why he came. And it's believed that's the part when he explains and he says that he come not for man's will, but the will of God.
John what?
Chapter 1, verse 11-13. That's the one we're looking at. And what does it say?
He came unto his own, and his own received him not.
Okay, it's a little different. I was going to go down further.
But as many as received him,
There
to
you go.
them gave he power to become the sons of God,
That's what I want right there.
even to them that believe on his name.
There you go. And that's part number 2, which is receiving the antidote. So that's part I'm going to add in there. That's what, 12 through,
11,
11 through 14 or 15? That's what that one was? All who receive him?
No, it was just,
It's okay. We'll get it. Just mark that there, because I'm gonna add that in there, because that part right there is just seeing the word receiving. So that part is receiving. Now let me talk about that a little bit there. He says, and we have to really make a great understanding with that. He says he's coming on his own. Now some would say that he came to his own as in culture standing, which is like Jews, because he came in the manner of a Jew. And if we dig deep into that history, we will look at it and see that there was a lot that was going on at that time. But throughout Jesus' ministry, through the 3 years, he wasn't looking for Jews. He was looking for believers. And so that's why he explained it even in that part. He says he's looking for those, even to those who believe in his name. So receiving the antidote was the first receiving Christ and then believing that he is who we believe that he is in Scripture, that he is the Messiah, the promised Messiah that was come to redeem all of human, all of us, and all of eternity, for all of eternity. Good Lord. Mouth dry. Okay. How are we doing on time?
4 minutes.
Okay. Benefits. We're loaded with daily benefits every day. We are reminded that we are new creatures in Christ. We have the right to have the abundant living. Our forgiveness of all iniquities and diseases that we may face is healed. We are rich. We have power of authority and authority. We have healing and peace. And we have the benefits, which is all in different scriptures. Let me just explain that all in one nugget. The man, okay, I'll explain it even better like this. Just like we have where we're living in today, even though we can have a debate about certain things that's going on in our time between racial differences, but we have a man that was in our time back in the 1960s called Martin Luther King, who had believed, you already know the story, he was a preacher, but he believed for equal rights. And now in today's time, you have probably just, I have a little difference on that, but you have more people that's coming together of different cultures than you did before. When the scope was on the differences and the hatred between black and white, now you have them coming together even more so. So what I'm saying there is that this man who's given his blood for his cause, the same likewise a greater man, which is Jesus Christ, has given his life so that we are able to have the more and the better. And so in his blood, we have his blood flowing through us when we receive him. That's why when we go back into communion and he said, "This is my blood, drink of it, do this. This is for the healing of, this is for the, for sins, basically, forgiveness of sins." And he said, "Eat of my flesh." That flows in us, but it only gets tapped into our believing. So that's why you hear Dr. Tim always speaking about it's what you're speaking, but it's also what you're believing as well. And it has to be rooted into your heart. I will say this, and I have to say this, it does not come with that we receive that we can't receive any type of diseases because we still get challenged. That's one of the factors there. And obviously it's the same matter how Jesus walked, that if he was, the Christ, he was still challenged of who he was. If he was challenged with all the things and was tempted by all things, what chances are that we were not, what are the chances that we would be redeemed from that same stuff as well? We wouldn't. So then therefore, there are things that our body are going to face, the common colds. There are certain things, there are certain practices we still have to do to take care of ourselves. But it does not negate the fact that we still have his blood flowing through us. And that's where that separates that from. It's in our confession and it's in our speaking. And I wanted to go over vision a little bit. That's what I was going to go over. Okay, so the responsibility for the new converts, which is going there, which is 2 Corinthians 5:18-20, and Romans, which is the road to salvation. But that is one of the things I wanted to point out. That also explains that in your life, because that comes down to Jesus Christ is part of your life, and he is the root of your heart, then his life becomes, your life becomes his life. And how it is explained that he's become poor so that we become rich, where you have all things that is granted for you. Every opportunity that should come should be open to you. It does not say that some opportunities is not going to be against you. We still are faced against racial inequality. We still faced against gender inequality. We're still faced against fear and everything else that stems from the foundation of fear. But as Christians, one of the main responsibilities as we get to that I believe is upholding the integrity of Christianity. Since Christ, like after his resurrection and the time of the apostles, all the way to the time of today, Christianity has always been attacked. It's been attacked and tried to be annihilated. In that time when they tried to kill Christians, it's been in the time of the Middle Easterns when it was the #1 religion of all the world and the main religion. but then how they conducted that, it was broken down to different religious sects. But now we're looking at integrity, because now people are looking at, okay, you say you're a Christian, but how are you supposed to conduct yourself? But you're still you.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that there are certain things that we know and explained in Galatians 5, which is talking about the fruit of the Spirit, and there are certain things that we can recognize that would help with that integrity of acting as a Christian. It does not necessarily negate the fact that we're supposed to just lay down and be, walked upon. No, there's just certain decisions that we don't have to partake in or have to receive. For instance, what's going on in the world today? People are afraid about Trump. They're afraid about so much that's going on now. World domination, fear, all this stuff. But as Christians, that is the one of the things that we should be able to stem away from, because we don't have the spirit of fear. It does not mean that we do not face certain things and get challenged by certain things. It just means that we have to make the right type of decisions. We're not stemmed from, we still face these certain obstacles, but our decision making could be a difference. If you think about even the time then around the apostles when Christianity was illegal, which in some countries now it's still illegal, but you still have a choice to say, I'm still going to represent God and that's going to be my God, or I'm going to fall into fear and I'll represent him on my own little time, but I will do everything on the open. And that is one of the things that we look at as far as integrity. Now, I wanted to point that out because we can sit here and talk about a lot of stuff that's going on right now, but do we have to really receive it? Because when we receive that, we receive the same thing as fear. And we're looking at like, okay, because I'm black, this is that is going on. Or because I'm white, I'm more privileged and I got more of this and that going on. Or, all these type of stuff. But his life says that we have that ability and authority. We all have the ability to learn. We have the ability to have opportunity. We have the ability to choose in wisdom the right type of opportunities for us that sets us up as well as our children. And it doesn't matter what age you come in at. It comes into, you could be 55, you could be 60 years old, and things can happen for you. That's the type of God that we serve. Now, a little bit about vision, and then we'll wrap up. And that's, I will get you guys a syllabus. Like I said, it's a 6-week course. It's going to be quick. I'll explain a little bit of the vision, and we'll probably try to go over that next week. In order to receive the vision of Spirit of Faith Christian Center, you must first understand what the vision means. We understand that vision is a supernatural presentation of a certain scenario or circumstance to the heart or mind of a person or thing while awake or asleep. We understand that Dr. Tim has received a vision from God. We've been called to assist him in fulfilling this vision, and the vision of SOFCCMN is an insight into God's divine purpose and will for people whom he has chosen and called to fulfill it. We've been called and chosen to place into his fellowship of believers to fulfill this revelation from God. And I'm going to stop there and explain that a little bit. So we understand that we are here, whether we are blood, married, or just called, we are chosen. And the fact of that matter is, where we are chosen is because we have accepted the call. It's just like your mom calls you and you say yes, and you come to her when she comes, when she asks of you, you've chosen to receive her calling. Same difference. Now, the thing about vision is that the vision is meant to help everybody. It's not meant to just help one person. It's not meant to just only look for two, but it's meant to enrich your lives as well. And in some cases, it will come down to where it's for, some people will get visions for the future. Some things will get a vision for the past. If you remember Revelations, John had a vision, and it was his message about what was going on at that time, and it was a promised hope for people. Some to hold on, some to get themselves together, but it was a vision that's saying that Christ is coming back. So do not fall, do not throw away your faith. And I believe that's all I'm going to pretty much cover from there. The assignment, though, like I said, I was going to have you do an homework assignment that was there, but what I will say this, how men become sons of God. It's just going to be one question. Name, I believe it's 3. We'll say 2 or more of different types of sons of God.
2 different types of who?
Sons of God. That's going to be, and it's going to take some research. And I definitely look forward to seeing what you guys come up with.